This is where. 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 This is where we all get down. Down.
Okay, so I've been wanting to do this video for a while. This is sort of your first 15 minutes in Reason. So I remember when I first had Reason way back at version 1, and I opened it up, there was stuff everywhere. I was trying to figure out the devices, the rack, the mixer, the sequencer. It's a lot to take in when you first start, but if you stick with it, you know, you will build up that knowledge and experience. So again, this is for the beginner, and this is as much as I can cram into 15 minutes when you first open up Reason, and how to get going as quickly as possible. Okay, so this is Reason when you open it up to start with. You can see you've got sort of a couple of windows going on here. We've got the mixer window here, we've got the rack, and we've got the sequencer. Okay, so you can size these around, you can drag them about, you can double click on them to give each one of them the real estate that you need in order to work in that space. You can use shortcut keys up here, so F5 for the main mixer, F6 for the racks, and F7 for the sequencer. If you've got multiple monitors, you can ping these things out and position them out onto other screens, which is always quite nice. I've tried various ways. I've had the mixer on a portrait screen, I've had the rack on a portrait screen, the sequencer on a landscape. I've had it on 3 monitors, 2 monitors, single monitors. I've worked a number of different ways. Whatever's comfortable for you. On top of that, on the left, we've got the browser window, so this is where you'll interact with patches, and you'll see how those work shortly. Search for sounds, WAVs, AIFFs, whatever you use in there. Over on the right here, we've got the tutorial window, all the help you could ever need about Reason, the help file. Take a look at that. Most of the stuff I'm going to cover in this 15 minutes is in there. In fact, all of it's in there. So down the bottom here, we've got the transport panel at the bottom, and this is important for playing, stopping your track, recording, looping, setting the tempo, the click counter, the volume of the click counter. We'll go into that in a second. So that's kind of how you find your way around here. And as I say, you can move these around, get comfortable in a particular position, or you can make one whole screen depending on what you're focusing on in there. So that's kind of the layout. There's a couple of other windows to be aware of. Here you can access the Spectrum EQ, and you'll see how we're going to take a quick look at that further into the session. The other one, which is of interest as well, is the tool window, so F8, and there's a few things we're going to access and take a look at here further on in this series. Okay, so let's get started then. So let's split these up and let's take a look. We're going to start with the sequencer. So if I double click on the sequencer here, let's give it focus so we can get a bit of attention to this. So the sequencer, this is where you lay down your track, your arrangement. This is the song view, okay? And if we take a look at these left and right locators to start with, you can drag these around. So let's just say we're going to work in an 8-bar loop here. We can move the right locator to 8. We can hold down Alt and click wherever we want it to be, and it will follow. Control, this is if you're on Windows, the left one will follow. Okay, so here we're going to work just in a little 8-bar loop. Right down the bottom here, you've got the zoom, and you can stretch this in and out to be able to see focus on your whole arrangement. The end locator is important, so that's going to be where your actual song will end. So if you're bouncing this thing out to a WAV, that's the point where it's going to end. So let's just drag the right locator out there, so we've got an 8-bar loop going on there. So you could also zoom in, so when we actually put files in here, clips or waves, you can increase the size of those things in there. You can zoom to fit, so you can get the arrangement onto the screen. You've also got zoom in and out for the actual tracks inside the sequence here when we start laying this stuff down. Okay, so we're going to look at something called blocks shortly, and I've got a video tutorial out there that covers blocks, and you'll understand what blocks are in a second. Okay, so that's super quick on the sequencer there. Let's work our way up. So let's look at the rack. So when you kick off an empty rack here, depending if you're using templates or whatever, by default you'll just see a very simple rack setup. You've got some reverb devices and an echo set up here. These are send effects. We'll take a look at those shortly. But in terms of things being in the rack, there's nothing when you first start out. So getting off the ground super quick, let's create a device. Let's add one in here. Right, you can do this a few ways. You can click on add device. You can go to instruments and you can pick one of the devices from in there. The other way is you can go over to the browser, so this thing pings in and out again to give you more real estate. You can pick up one of the devices and just drop it into the rack. So what I'm picking up here is a Dr. Octorex loop player. Slicers, again, I've got a tutorial out there all about Octorex using slicers, playing with loops and things like that, so check that out when you get a chance. So let's take a look at this device. We dropped it in there. By default, if you just hit the run button, we have a default patch loaded in there from the Reason library. We can do that. You can reset most devices by hitting right click reset device and it will be empty. So if I try and play it now, there's nothing in there. I'm going to pick up a super quick patch from one of the libraries that we've got, and I'm going to drag that patch into there. The other way you can do it is just by double clicking on it in the browser and it will load in. If I play this patch now, I'm just going to drop the volume on it a little bit. You can see that'll start looping in there. Okay, so we've got a device in there. I can start messing around, laying down some ideas now. So we've got a beat. So let's get a synth in there, okay? So we're going to take a look at how to add another device. So we're going to do this a different way. We're going to click add device, go to instruments, and we're going to pick up a synth from there. So let's pick up Europa. Now, when it puts these things into the rack, by default they'll kind of just sit beneath each other depending where you click. And you can see here I've got the ability to move these things into multiple racks, if you like, within the racking area. So I can move him to here, I can move him up here. What I tend to do is put all my drums and percussion down into the first columns, if you want to call them that. I have my synths in another, my vocals in another. So one of the things I tend to do here is as I rename these things here, so let's just call this synth 1. Now when you rename things here in the rack, you'll notice we haven't got to the SSL mixing console yet, but it'll change the name of it up there. So if I come down here and I just change that to kick, you'll notice it renames it there. I tend to colour these, so if you right click track colour, tend to go with green for the synths and I'll go with red for the kick. So now what are we going to do with this synth? We've dragged it in, we can see it's ready to go, but nothing's playing. If I hit play here, nothing happens. If I hit play here, nothing happens. So one super quick way is if you right click on the instrument, go to utilities, choose the matrix pattern sequencer. Right, if you look now, this thing will start playing. Let's turn the volume down on that a little bit. Let's drop the decay and drop the release, maybe just increase the attack a little, and we can start manipulating the sound of this. Yeah, okay, so what we can do now is we can play our Dr. Octorex along at the same time. Yeah, and then we, of course, you know, we can mess around with some more of the parameters in here. We'll just leave it pretty much as it is. So, okay, we're starting to lay down an idea. We've got a synth, we've got a kick. So next sort of things we can do, we can add another synth. Okay, so again we can just pick one up from over here, we can drop it into that same rack there. So we've got all our synths. So again, if we name this down here, you see it honours the change. If I colour up here or I colour down in the channel, the actual in the rack, it will colour that green. So we've now got our synths together there. So again, another way here of adding to this is you can draw clips directly into the sequencer. So we've just added the synth down here. If we actually create a clip down here, so let's put something in inside this loop, and maybe just at the end of this 8-bar loop we're going to do something with this sound. We can just draw into here the actual sounds that we want at the given note. So I'm going to go maybe at C3. I'm just going to hit a couple of notes in here as we do that. So if I close out that particular clip now, you can see it's drawn in green there. If we do the playback now, right, the reason that you're not hearing anything yet, because the clips aren't going to fire till we hit this point. We just push it on a little bit because of time. I might just turn the volume down a little bit there. So the interesting thing now is we've got this synth playing, but it's only playing and being triggered by the matrix, okay, and the Octarex is only playing here by us explicitly clicking run. How do we get that into the song then, right? So again, if we select the instrument here and we just do a right click, copy loop to track, it'll put in the clips in there for us. Now we can turn off now, enable loop playback. So the interesting thing now is it's all the kicks playing through the sequencer, and also our second synth's firing through the clip as well. But our actual synth 1 is actually still firing from the matrix. So how do we get that in there? We just do right click on the matrix and we do set copy pattern to track. Again, we can now turn off the matrix and everything is now firing from within the sequencer. So you'll notice, because I was renaming up here, we just need to name these down here, right? Okay, so I've just named the actual synths down here in the actual sequencer so that they match up with the items I've got up here. So the other way I mentioned about working here is something called blocks. Okay, so we put all the clips into the song view. Now you can quite legitimately build out your track in here and adjusting the clips as and when things open up, break down, whatever, and building up certain parts of the track. But an easier way to do this is if you go up to options in Reason and do enable blocks, you get this extra little piece that pops up here, and you've got song view, which is what we've just worked in. We've copied the clips into song view. If you go into block view, I can create a number of blocks here, 32 blocks here, and again what I'm going to do is stretch out my right and left locators so they work independently of what you're seeing in the song view, and I'm going to stretch that up there, give me more space. I'm going to take those clips, so we Control X on Windows. I'm going to go into the block, I'm going to paste them into the block. Okay, so if I go back to song view, there's nothing's playing here, right, because I've taken the clips out of there and they're not being triggered, but they're in the block view for block 1. If I play block 1, it's there and it's working as it did in song view. How do I get that block into the sequencer now? So I just come into the song view and I can double click in this lane here and I can actually stretch that block for the whole 8-bar loop just like before. So now if I play it, you can actually see that block playing. So I can now go into blocks again and I can say, okay, I like the sound of that, but let's create a second block. So I'll move to block 2, and again I'm going to make it an 8-bar loop. I'm going to paste in the same clips, but I'm going to take out the kick from block 2. So if I go back to song view, I might want to say, well, for the last 5 to 8 there, it's block 1, and then building up to that I'm going to kick in with block 2, right? So here you notice I've got no kick now, but as this comes through and we hit block 1, the kick's going to drop in. Yeah, so that, again, like I say, I've got a whole tutorial on blocks out on the website, so take a look at that. You can go and learn quite a lot just by how to arrange your song there and make your life easier with blocks. Okay, so just in the essence of time, right at the beginning I talked about the send effects here, so let's just whiz up to the SSL. So if you take a look at this can be quite daunting when you first look at this. There's so much in there. Here's some buttons at the bottom. Look, you can take some of these things out, right? So it makes it easier to focus. So there's just the faders. If I want to play around there, I can do that without seeing all the other stuff around there. But if you look in effects, you'll notice we got 3 reverbs and an echo. Well, they stack up here in the effects section, and I can easily enable these. If I just play with the track again, if you look at synth 1, I've got solo and mute here, so I can turn them off and on. But also I've got the send effects section here, and I can turn on that reverb on that first device. And if I dial some more of that in, you can hear that reverb kicking in now. Obviously that's quite a lot. So in the next session, which will be the next sort of 15 minutes in Reason, you're going to dive deeper into some of these controls in the we're going to dive deeper into the SSL. So if you like what you're seeing, please subscribe, and I look forward to doing the next section that will give you some more info about using Reason.
Yeah.